Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya.
Namaskaram to all and welcome to the fifth episode of Śiva-Bodha-Mālikā. In the series of the heroic acts or the Veerakratyas of Shiva that we started looking at from the last episode, today we are going to look at Dakṣa-adhvara-nāśana-mūrti, the one who destroyed the yajna or adhvara of Daksha, the sacrifice of Daksha. Let us see what's the story behind this. The story comes in multiple Puranas, but the story I really love is the one depicted in the Bhagavata Purana. Here, Vidura is asking Maitreya as to how can somebody hate Parameshwara, who is the soul, the Atman of everyone, who is residing as the soul of everybody, who is the Loka Guru. How can somebody hate such a Devata, such a person, such an entity who is the soul of everyone? Then Maitreya begins to tell the story of the Dakṣa-adhvara-nāśana. Daksha Prajapati. The Prajapatis are the descendants of Brahma, who are created to rule the earth, and they come in succession. So it is a position of ruling the earth. So they rule for a certain period of time, and then a different Prajapati takes over. Daksha, the name itself indicates dexterity, skillfulness. So Daksha was extremely talented and skillful among the Prajapatis. That is why he was named itself Daksha. So once in the assembly of all the devas and everyone present, Daksha enters the assembly. Everyone just stands up looking at the great tejas of Daksha and the great demeanor of Daksha. And he is the Prajapati, he is the Lord of all. So everyone gets up to welcome him. Only two people don't get up. One is Brahma and other is Shiva, Rudra. Brahma doesn't get up because he is the forefather of Prajapati, and Prajapati doesn't feel bad. He worships Brahma, but he doesn't like that Shiva is not got up when he is coming in, because Daksha had given his daughter Sati in marriage to Shiva. Much against his own wishes, he did not want to give Sati in marriage to Shiva, but Sati had surrendered herself, her heart completely to Shiva, and wanted to marry Shiva only. And Brahma had specifically asked or encouraged Daksha to solemnize this marriage. So despite him not wanting to do so at the behest of his daughter's wishes and the request of Brahma, he had given his daughter to Shiva. But he wasn't very happy with that marriage. We will come in a few minutes as to why. That internal dissonance or discontent shows up in this episode when Shiva doesn't get up to welcome Daksha. Now Shiva doesn't get up to welcome Daksha because Shiva is sitting there as the soul of everyone. He is sitting there in Brahmasthiti. So there is no one whom he will venerate, and there is no one who needs to venerate him. Nistutihi nirnamaskaraha. The state that is typically described of self-realized beings, of Atmajnanis or Brahmajnanis, that is the state in which Shiva is. So he doesn't feel the need to get up and worship or welcome Daksha, though Daksha is his father-in-law. Daksha doesn't like this insult. He takes this as an insult. And in that assembly, he speaks certain words that insult Parameshwara. He says, Preta vaseshu ghoreshu pretaihi bhutaganairvritaihi atati unmattavat nagraha yuktakeshaha hasan rudan. How is this Rudra? How is this Shiva? Preta vaseshu, living with all the ghosts and spirits. Ghoreshu, fierce ones. Pretaihi bhutaganairvritaihi, always surrounded by the bhutaganas and the pretaganas. Atati, he just keeps wandering. Unmattavat, like a madman. Nagraha, he is naked most of the times. Yuktakeshaha, sometimes he is completely bald. Hasan Rudan, sometimes he laughs, sometimes he cries. These are all qualities indicated in various parts of the Bhagavata Purana itself to describe Atmajnanis. Prahlada, when the description of Prahlada comes in the Bhagavata Purana, also it is said Unmatavat, Hasan, Rudan. Prahlada also in the state of ecstasy, he sometimes cries, he sometimes laughs, he just roams about like a madman. The same descriptions come here. Chita Bhasma Krita Snanaha. He takes bath in Chita Bhasma, the Smashana Bhasma. Pretasrang Nasti Bhushanaha. His Bhushana is Pretasrak, the skulls of different people who have died in the Smashana. All their skulls, the skull garland is what adorns his neck. Shiva Apadeshaha. He's given the name Shiva. Ashivaha, but he is actually most inauspicious because all these things are mostly related with inauspiciousness. Be it Smashana, Smashana Bhasma, Smashana, the skull garlands, Atati, Unmattavat, Nagraha, all these are considered in the normal world as inauspicious. So he's Ashivaha, he's inauspicious, though he's named Shiva. Mattaha, he's intoxicated. Matta Janapriyaha, he is the favorite of intoxicated people. Patihi Pramathanathanam, all this Bhutaganas, he is the Pati. Tamo Matratmakatmanam, he is the very form of tamas or ignorance. This is how Daksha insults Parameshwara. And he walks away. So this is the discontent that Daksha is having, that he had to give his daughter to such a person. Daksha, the Prajapati, and Prajapati's daughter, what kind of prosperity and auspiciousness and what kind of background will she be coming from? And she is being given in marriage to Shiva, who is having this kind of a demeanor and appearance. So this discontent comes out in that assembly in this episode, and he walks away from the place. Shiva doesn't react at all because he is in the state of self-realization. But the Gana of Shiva, Nandikeshwara, he gets very angry and he curses Daksha. In turn, one of the sages present there, Bhrigumuni, he curses Nandikeshwara back, and this back and forth keeps happening, and Shiva just leaves the place, unable to bear all this quarrel, and the peace of the entire place has gone away. Shiva just walks away from the place. So this is the background or the context episode. What follows is Daksha organizes a yajna specifically to insult Shiva. He initiates a yajna and he calls everyone except Shiva and Sati, because Sati is now married to Shiva. So Shiva and Sati are not invited. Everybody else is invited for the yajna, the Daksha yajna, the famous Dakṣa-adhvara or Daksha yajna. This, though Shiva doesn't bother about it, Sati takes it to the heart because it is something happening in her paternal house and she is not being invited. So she has that's a beautiful episode that you can read in the Bhagavata Purana. The kind of justifications that Sati gives for Shiva and Sati to go to Dakṣa and the kind of reasoning that Shiva gives in reply to Sati. Sati says, we have to go. There is a yajna conducted in our father's place, in my father's place, and we have to go for that because I am the daughter, the eldest daughter, and you are the son-in-law. So we have to be present in the yajna. Shiva says, but we are not invited. Even if it be your own parents, if you are not invited to a place, you are not supposed to go. But Sati gives different reasoning. She says that it's after all our parents. They care for us the most. So even if they forget to invite, we should go. So like this, there is a conversation that happens between Shiva and Sati, and finally Shiva says, "Do as you want. I will not be coming. You do as you want." So Sati then decides to go to the Dakṣa because she is not able to give up the pasha, the bandha pasha that she has towards her parents. So she goes. It's a beautiful setting, and all the devas, Gandharvas, Kinnaras, everybody is present there, and the yajna is going on. Daksha doesn't even welcome Sati. He doesn't even look towards Sati. Afraid of Daksha, nobody else welcomes Sati. But Sati's mother and sisters, they welcome her and take her inside. But she is unable to bear this insult that her father is not welcoming her. She felt that her father loved her, so despite all the animosity that he has with Shiva, he would still welcome her, but that didn't happen. So at that point of time, she feels insulted, and the more she feels insulted is when she realizes that the Havir Bhaga, the portion of the yajna which has to be given as oblation to Rudra is completely not there. It has been completely eliminated from the yajna. That enrages Sati, and she then speaks as the wife of Shiva, as the wife of Rudra in that yajna. She questions all the devas, and she questions Daksha. She is surprised at the ignorance and the haughtiness, arrogance of Daksha. And then she speaks as the wife of Rudra and not as the daughter of Daksha. And finally, she tells him that, my husband told me not to come here, but I still came here assuming that there would be some love and you would not have lost your sense. But the way you are, your arrogance and haughtiness clearly tells me that I have become polluted by coming to this place and being born as your daughter. So I am going to leave this body, which has become impure by being born as your daughter and coming to this place. Having said this, through her own yoga agni, right, the agni of her own self, she burns her body and the body falls dead at that very place. The moment Shiva comes to know this, he becomes enraged at this whole episode, and he plucks his hair and dashes it to the ground, and there comes a fierce Gana, who is Veerabhadra, fierce Gana with all ayudhas, and Shiva instructs, orders Virabhadra to go and destroy the sacrifice of Daksha, to go and destroy the Dakṣa or the Dakṣa-adhvara. Veerabhadra with all the Ganas. In some stories, it's also Bhadrakali along with Veerabhadra who go and put an end to the complete sacrifice and the yajna of Daksha. So what you see here, this is a beautiful painting that describes how Veerabhadra, who is depicted in blue, dark in color and complexion and with so many ayudhas and hands, and all the Bhutaganas, not just Veerabhadra, all the Bhutaganas there, they left, right, center, they just go and destroy the entire yajna. And finally, Veerabhadra takes over Daksha and decapitates him, just removes his head off. That is also you can see in this uh, image, in this painting. So this puts an end to the Daksha Yajna. With the beheading of Daksha, of the Prajapati, the entire place becomes completely messed up with, it is strewn with blood and heads and everything. So the Bhutaganas put an end to the entire Yajna. So this is the episode of Dakṣa-adhvara-Mathana or Dakṣa-yajna-nāśana. So this form of Shiva, as Virabhadra, is a fierce form of Shiva. In many cases, Virabhadra is recognized as the Gana of Shiva, but he is none but Shiva himself in that fierce form because he has come from Shiva. So it is the fierce form of Shiva that manifested itself as Virabhadra. So let us look at some of the images of Virabhadra, because you will find Virabhadra in many of the kshetras of Shiva. Here, what you see on the left is a painting of Veerabhadra, here depicted as Chaturbhuja, and many of the aspects of this Veerabhadra you will find is nothing but Shiva itself, holding the Damaru, the Ganga in his matted hair. So all those aspects, and the Agni, so the Damaru and the Agni that Shiva holds as a Nataraja, same things come here, right? So many of the ayudhas and aspects of Virabhadra are nothing but that of Shiva that are represented here. And he is represented in dark complexion, in some cases blue, in some cases red, like this, to indicate the fierceness. And beside him, always, and most times, you will find Daksha being represented with a head of a ram. Because after the decapitating of Daksha, after the entire episode is over, all the devas go and approach Parameshwara and say, now we don't have a Prajapati, we don't have a ruler, and we can't have anarchy. The world will become destroyed if there is anarchy, if there is no king, if there is no ruler. So Prajapati has to be resurrected back. And anyway, now he has got his lesson, right? By decapitating him, he has been given his lesson. He has been shown the way. So then Shiva then graces and asks Brahma to fit in the head of a ram or a goat to Daksha's body, and that is how Daksha gets resurrected back. There is a very interesting side information. It says that the Chamaka, the Rudram and the Chamakam, right? Namakam and Chamakam. Rudram is where you are glorifying and praising Shiva, and Chamakam is where you are asking Shiva, who is pleased, who is standing in that pleased state, you are asking for various things from Parameshwara to be given to you, to be blessed, to you to be blessed with all those things. That is Chamakam. So in Chamakam, if you hear the Chamakam, Sanchame, Mayachame, Priyanchame, Nukamaschame, Kamaschame, Somanasachame, Bhadranchame, Shreyachame, Vasyachame, Yashachame, Bhakaschame, Travinanchame, Chame, it will come. Cha indicates and. So there are multiple things that you're asking. So this and this and this and this. May is to me, for me. An interesting episode says that as the Devas and Rishis and everyone were asking for the Parameshwara who was standing in that pleased state for different things, Daksha also wanted to ask something and praise Parameshwara, but he couldn't with the goat head. The only thing he could say is may. Because that is what the goat bleats, the bleating of the goat. So that got interjected with these different asks of the different rishis. So that is why it became Chame. So that's an interesting side information or a side point that is typically quoted in a very lighter way. So this is the depiction. So Daksha is typically depicted beside of Veerabhadra. The other image that you see here is of Hayalu Veerabhadra Swami in Srisailam. There is a separate outside the kshetra, in the premises of the kshetra, there is a sannidhi. It's an open roof sannidhi. There you have this beautiful tall image of Veerabhadra Swami with all the ayudhas. And there also you can see on the right side of Veerabhadra Swami standing is Daksha with the head of a ram. And on the left side you will typically see the Daksha Patni, the wife of Daksha, praying that please resurrect my husband back to life. So these are the two images you will see in many cases. In some cases, only that of Daksha is typically seen. And in Srisailam especially, which is resounding with the Sannidhi of Shiva, you have many Virabhadra kshetras there in and around the kshetra. Inside the kshetra, outside the kshetra, we have a lot of Sannidhis for Virabhadra that you can see there. These are some of the other sculptures and images of Virabhadra. In all, many of these things, as you can see, you will find. And in here on the left side, what you see, this is in one of the temples of Karnataka. Here, Daksha is being crushed by Virabhadra. So he's lying at the foot of Virabhadra, but with the head of a goat. Just to indicate that Daksha was decapitated by Virabhadra and then given the head of a goat. And besides Virabhadra, you'll find different Preta Ganas and Rudra Ganas and Bhuta Ganas with skeleton who are standing there in the different ayudas of Virabhadra. And he's in the Nagna pose. And on the right side, you will find this is that from the Madurai Meenakshi Amman temple. Beautiful, tall sculpture of Virabhadra, Ghora Virabhadra. That is how he is. Aghora Virabhadra is how he is referred to here as. Right, with different ayudas that he is representing. The bow and the arrow will definitely find mention in most of the images, or will find reference in most of the images of Veerabhadra. So this is the entire episode of Dakṣa-adhvara-nāśana. Now, some related stories that are there related to this episode. One is from the Ramayana. A very interesting episode that we find in the Ramayana is when Janaka tells about the Shiva Dhanus to Vishwamitra and Rama and Lakshmana who have gone to Mithila. So while telling the story of the Shiva Dhanus, Janaka says that this was the Dhanus which Shiva used after the Daksha Yajna was all destroyed. He was angry and furious at all the Devas because they refused Rudra and they did not advise Daksha to give Havirbhaga to Rudra. So Shiva was very enraged and he stands there with the bow and the arrow ready to release the arrow against the Devas and destroy all of them. But then all the Devas go and plead to Shiva and say and ask pardon from him. Then Shiva becomes gladdened with all of them and he offers that Dhanus as a gift from his side. So this Janaka says was received from the Devas by one of our forefathers. And then it has come as a lineage, it has come to us, and this is the story of the Shiva Dhanus. So this is a side story that comes as a part of the Daksha Yajna. The other story that is related with Daksha Yajna is that of Sati. So after Sati's body falls dead and this entire Daksha Yajna is destroyed, Shiva is completely saddened at the death of Sati. So he walks with that Preta Sharira, that Mrita Sharira, he walks the entire universe like an Unmatta, like a madman, because he was so much in love with Sati. But if he walks like this, then the samhara, the function of destruction of the universe and the various aspects will come to a standstill. So Vishnu and Brahma, they decide that this cannot be the case. So Vishnu then sends a chakra, and the Sudarshana chakra goes and cuts the body of Sati into 52 pieces. And these 52 pieces of Sati's body falls in different places, which became famous as Shakti Pitas. So the different Shakti Pitas have different parts of Sati that have fallen in different places of Bharatavarsha. So that is the story behind the Shakti Pitas, which is again correlated with the Daksha Yajna and the Daksha Yajna Mathana or the Dakṣa-adhvara-nāśana-mūrti. To this episode, you'll find reference in many places. The very famous Panchakshari Stotra, Nagendra Haraya Trilochanaya. The third one, Shivaya Gauri Vadanabja Vrinda Suryaya Dakṣa-adhvara-nāśana-mūrti or Suryaya Dakṣa-adhvara-nāśakāya. Shivaya Gauri Vadanabja Brinda. He was so much attached with Gauri, with Sati. Dakṣa-adhvara-nāśana-mūrti. He put an end to the Adhvara, to the Yajna of Daksha. And in many other places, the reference to the Daksha Yajna comes. Now, coming to the Attaviratana Sthalams, which we have been discussing, the Kshetra in Tamil Nadu that belongs to this episode, or this form of Shiva as Dakṣa-adhvara-nāśana-mūrti, is the Veerateshwara temple, also known as Dakshapurishwara temple in Tiruppariyalur. So, Tiruppariyalur, the Lord stands as the one who put an end to the Yajna of Daksha and decapitated Daksha. Tiruptana Sambandar has sung a padikam at this temple. He says, Vilangon Malarmel Ayanodavannan Tulangun Manatar Todattalan Ilangombanalo Dinaindum Pinaindum Vilangum Tiruppariyal Veeratathane. Tiruppariyal Veeratathane. Tiruppariyal. Pariyal means to take away, to snatch away. So here the head of Daksha was snatched away. So that is why the name Tiruppariyalur or Tiruppariyal Veeratatha. And the Ambal or Devi here is known as Ilam Kombanal. So Ilam Kombanal Od Inaindum Pinaindum. One who is staying very close with Ilam Kombanal. That is the name of the Devi or the goddess Shakti in this Kshetra. So this was the story of the Dakṣa-adhvara-nāśana-mūrti or Daksha-yajna-nāśana-mūrti. We shall look at the other heroic deeds of Shiva in the upcoming episodes. Until then, do keep watching the various episodes on Subbu's Corner, and we shall meet again next Monday. Until then, Namaskar.